Hi, welcome to the Mohua show. My name is Mohua Chinnappa and I am an author, entrepreneur and ex-housewife. This podcast is about everything from business to technology to arts to lifestyle, but done and spoken ईमानदारी से. Hi, in this episode we have with us Shabnam Hashmi. Shabnam is a known Indian social activist and human rights campaigner. She's known for her tireless efforts in promoting harmony, democracy, and secularism in India. Shabnam is born to a family of intellectuals and artists, and she's been at the forefront of the fight against communalism and fundamentalism in India since 1989. After the Gujarat riots of 2002, she shifted her focus to grassroots work and has spent a considerable amount of time working in Gujarat, Kashmir, Bihar, and the Mewat area of Haryana. Her work has earned her several awards and recognitions, including the Association for Communal Harmony in India, ACHA, Star Award for Communal Harmony in 2005, National Minority Rights Award 2008 by the National Minority Commission. Let's keep listening as we delve into the life and work of this remarkable woman who has dedicated her life to fighting for justice and equality. Welcome, Shabnam, in today's podcast. So, Shabnam, पहला सवाल जो मेरे पास आता है is a quote, of yours that I just read. I returned the National Minority Rights Award, which has lost all its credibility in protest against the consistent attacks and killings of the members of the minority communities and total inaction, apathy and tacit support to the violent gangs by the government. So, Shabnam ji, आपने ये letter you had written to the commission, what prompted you to do this?
Actually, I returned the award when there were lynchings happening across India, and a large number of Muslim young men were being killed in the name of transporting cows or killing cows. And that I felt was a time when I felt absolutely helpless because I couldn't help anyone. Earlier, if there was a situation developing somewhere, we were in a position to pressurize the police or tell them or call people in the government and tell them that this is happening and they would intervene. For the last 8-9 years, that has become impossible. So I thought it was the time to return the award which was given to me. And it was kind of a protest against what was happening in the country.
So, Shabnam, you can tell us a little about your background and how you became involved in social activism and human rights campaigning. What was that point in your life when you decided to take on the role of becoming an activist and such a strong voice?
Actually, it was more of a coincidence, I should say. I was studying abroad and I had come to India on vacation. This was 1982. And a friend asked me to help teaching a few girls in Nizamuddin Basti in Delhi. And I was free for 2 months, so I started working there. But what happened that those 2 months flew by very quickly. And more than that, my first student was a 16-year-old girl. Her name is Farida. This was 40 years ago. And she was married off at the age of 12. And at 14, she got divorced with 2 children. I met her when she was 16 years. She had never been to school. She was wearing a burqa from the age of 9. And after teaching her and some other girls in that basti, I realized that, this was the first time that they were thinking of a new kind of life. And they also said, Farida said, I have never seen anything good in my life. This is the first time when I'm feeling happy. And what will happen to us when you go away? So in that age, you are more emotional. And I'm glad I was, because I stayed back. And then I ended up working in that basti for 8 years. And I ended up also educating more than 400 girls and women. Today, Farida runs an NGO. She heads an NGO and she teaches school dropouts. So that was the beginning of my activism. And after that, I was actually working in that basti till 1989 when my brother Shabnam Hashmi was killed, murdered. And then in his memory, Sehmat was formed, Shabnam Hashmi Memorial Trust. So I worked with that for 15 years. I was running that along with a group of artists and intellectuals. And then 2002 happened, and I spent 1 year in Gujarat working in relief camps, documenting the stories of the gang rape survivors and so on. So the kind of hatred that I saw in Gujarat during that time, I felt very strongly that I just couldn't be sitting in the city working with artists and intellectuals. So then, after working for 1 year in Gujarat, I formed Anhad, which is Act Now for Harmony and Democracy, that I have been running for now 20 years. It works on questions of secularism, democracy, fighting hatred, especially among the young people.
It's really interesting, actually, Shabnam, कि मैं आपसे आज बात कर रही हूँ. It's almost surreal for me because I was one of the people who was part of the entire protest after Sadr Hashmi's death in Delhi. And I remember he used to be a very regular in the JNU campus, and I stayed very close to the campus in Delhi. And we were all part of this entire voice that was being raised, about civic situations in Delhi and, street theater that he had taken up. So ये podcast मेरे लिए बहुत special है, Shabnam. तो थोड़ा सा, if you can tell our listeners about Safdar Hashmi and his influence on your activism.
Actually, Safdar मुझसे सिर्फ 2.5 साल बड़ा था. We were like, I am the youngest in the family. शुरू में तो मैं बाहर चली गई स्कूल के बाद फौरन ही. And the age when you are more politically active, by the time I came back, I got involved in the Basti. And frankly, Safdar and my other brother Suhail, they thought I was wasting my time. Because उन दिनों में जो they were both by then part of the left movement और पार्टी के अंदर होते थे वो सीपीएम के. तो उन दिनों में बहुत थोड़ा सा बड़ा स्ट्रांग वो होता था कि आप सीधा पॉलिटिकल काम नहीं कर रहे तो अपना टाइम बर्बाद कर रहे. तो सफदर और सुहेल मुझे कहा करते थे कि डायरेक्ट पॉलिटिक्स में आओ, ये टाइम की बर्बादी है. आई डिडंट एग्री विद देम. बट टॉकिंग अबाउट सफदर, एक तो ही वाज अ वेरी लाइवली पर्सन. ही वाज फुल ऑफ लाइफ. मतलब घर में हमारे माहौल होता था, बहुत महफिलें लगती थी और गपबाजी होती थी. My father was also a very good storyteller and he used to sing always, Faiz and Sahir especially. तो सफदर हमारे घर का बिल्कुल एक एंटरटेनर होता था. He would do all kinds of acts. वो एक पूरी एक्टिंग करता था. बहुत ही मजाक की बात है चूहा खाने की. And he would show it to us as if the mouse was actually moving inside his stomach, and he was able to control his body like that and show the movement. और बहुत सारी चीजें he was. लेकिन सफदर की मुझे लगता है जो सबसे बड़ी बात थी कि he was not उसका विजन बहुत बड़ा था, बहुत बड़ा विजन था. वो ऐसा नहीं था कि बहुत ही आजकल एक काफी जिसे कहते हैं कि संकीर्ण सोच जो होती है वो नहीं थी. So while he was a part of the left movement and a political party, लेकिन उसकी दोस्तियां और यारियां जो हैं वो they were across board, both in terms of class, caste, gender, and also in terms of political orientation. उसने कभी किसी को अपना दुश्मन नहीं बनाया. He was always, ready to talk to other people. मैंने सफदर के साथ काम नहीं किया एक्सेप्ट व्हेन ही वाज डूइंग मोटेराम का सत्याग्रह उस वक्त, और एक बार बंगाल रिलीफ के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा प्रोग्राम हुआ था व्हेन ही हैड आस्क्ड मी टू हेल्प हिम. और मोटेराम का सत्याग्रह में ही हैड आस्क्ड मी टू हेल्प हिम रेज रिसोर्सेज. अदरवाइज बचपन के बाद हम सभी पांचों ही लोगों का ऐसी जिंदगी रहेगी दैट वी वर, हमारी मुलाकात होती थी धरना डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन में. तो कुछ ऐसी ही जिंदगी कटी. बट his loss of course affected all of us, and also the fact that he was just stepping into the most creative part of his life. He had just begun to reach there when he was killed. He was only 34. तो वो तो जाहिर है कि उसका तो मलाल हमेशा रहेगा कि he could have produced a lot more creative work than he did while till the age of 34.
So, Shabnam, it just brings me down to this entire concept of how politically roused, youngsters were and how emotional we were. So I remember Safdar really, really well, and that time. Do you think there's been a huge change in India among the youth of today? Do you think that they are also as politically vocal, and they are as affected as we were, when we were young, about political situations around us? Or maybe it's become better? Or do you think there's a slack somewhere?
See, I think one, that it is very difficult to say whether the youth as such, as an entity, is the same or not, because I think there are different segments in the youth. The rural youth is more connected to the ground and is suffering a lot more, but also the excess of the rebel rousers and the hate mongers is a lot more there, I think, especially in small towns. In the big cities like and metro cities, especially the young people under 20 or even under 25, they have they have been brought up totally in a consumerist society, and I think their way of thinking is very, very different from what it used to be. The young people who are sensitive, they are, I feel, much ahead of us, because our generation still carried a lot of baggage. This young generation doesn't carry that baggage of what their parents or grandparents were carrying. So they are a lot more open about caste and class and all. I mean, they are above those discriminations. And as a result, I see a lot of young people having very strong arguments and fights within their own homes. A lot of young people come to us, to the organization, to do internship or even otherwise. We also get a lot of young people who have mental health issues, because Anhat also works on that. But people who are engaged are deeply engaged. But that's the number is not huge, I feel. Uh, Although it's very difficult to say nowadays, because the picture is so unclear. On one hand, you have the kind of oppression that everyone is witnessing, but on the other hand, you also have young people participate in the whole Kisan movement, in the student movement across universities. So I think it's a very mixed bag, what we have right now.
Shabnam, you'll be the perfect person to discuss and tell us your experience working in areas like Gujarat, Kashmir, Bihar, and Mewat. What are the kind of challenges? Are they different from one another, or are they actually similar?
Different in many ways and also similar in many ways, because काम तो आप कहीं भी करें मुश्किल होता है. गुजरात was and continues to be very difficult, because Gujarat was treated as the laboratory of the Hindu Rashtra, and all forms of spreading hatred and dividing and polarizing people has been experimented in Gujarat, including what we are witnessing now, what we are witnessing, the Adani episode. We had we have witnessed all this in Gujarat, how the lands of the tribals of the poor people were snatched away and given to Adani on just throwaway prices. So we have seen how rules were flouted there openly, and how even the people sitting at district magistrates level would say, we don't care about what the Supreme Court says. So we saw the dismantling of institutions in Gujarat very, very strongly. And that is now happening across India. So it was very visible that if Mr. Modi becomes the Prime Minister, that this is what will happen to India, which is being seen. So working in Gujarat has never been easy. In fact, we have been physically attacked in Gujarat many times, when we have been beaten up or our vehicles have been broken up. That has happened a number of times. In Modi's constituency, we were doing a campaign on 2nd October for Gandhi, when we were physically attacked in Modi's own constituency, Maninagar. At that time, he used to fight from Maninagar. Kashmir has its own challenges. We actually responded to the earthquake in Kashmir in 2005, and we went to do relief work in a place called Tangdhar, where the terrain is very difficult. You have to cross the 10,000 feet Sadhna Peak to reach there. And that time, all the roads and everything were broken. So our engagement in Kashmir was and has been not so much around the human rights, but more humanitarian work, which we did. We started working after the relief. It was difficult because of many other reasons, and at that time the working timings used to be very small, because by the evening everything would shut down. Now Kashmir remains open much longer. But what we have also witnessed in Kashmir is the kind of closing in which has happened in Kashmir, especially for women. Because I remember Kashmiri women were much ahead of time, and as compared to Muslim women in rest of India, they were a lot more progressive. Now we run a small center now in a place called Khumrial, a village, and every single girl who is coming to the center is in a burqa, which was never the case in Kashmir. So conservatism is increasing there for whatever reasons. It's a conflict zone, and ordinary Kashmiris have been sandwiched between the forces and the militants, and they have faced a lot of issues. And Kashmir continues to face those issues. Mewat again was actually not very difficult, because it was we had gone there on their invitation, but it is the Mewati community is one of the most conservative Muslim community, and because of the fact that a religious organization has worked there for years, Tablighi Jamaat, which doesn't spread hatred, by the way, but it talks of, in their terms, the real Islam. And their real Islam is when women remain within the four walls. So, working in villages, taking out women to get them to the centers, what was not easy. While we had different Muslim clerics coming on the roads and trying to stop the girls from coming to our center, we also had a lot of supporters there. All our work actually collapsed, whether in Mewat or Kashmir or Gujarat, because we have now no resources. We lost our FCRA as soon as the new regiment came into being. And we have been now surviving on personal donations for over 8 years. And because of that, the work has really got confined.
How wronged do you feel, Shabnam? So many years of work and then having to face so many roadblocks.
Well, I don't think I feel wrong personally, because you see, when you are doing this kind of work, it is very clear that the forces who do not believe in democracy or in love and harmony, they would be attacking you all the time. And we have faced the ire of the right wing of the fascist forces from our very existence. I mean, I'm talking of Anhad, from the day we started Anhad 20 years ago. So I don't feel wrong myself, but I definitely am very worried about what is happening in the country, and whether the opposition, secular political parties, whether the ordinary people of this country, whether the civil society would be able to have enough resistance to stop fascism from taking over the country fully. We are right now living in a semi-fascist state. I don't have any two questions about that, because if we look at the 14 characteristics of fascism, I think we have crossed the 60-70% mark on most of them. But yet the resistance is there, and because of our diversity, resistance is also very vibrant and diverse. And I sincerely feel that the India and Indian people should be able to defeat these forces. Nevertheless, it worries me, and worries me for the future generations, because I'm 65. I have lived a large part of my life in an India which my father dreamt of. My father was a freedom fighter. He spent 4 years in jail fighting against the British. But the new generation is seeing an India which is very different, and we won't like to leave uh, a right-wing India or a India which hates others for the next generations. So it only gives me more courage to keep on fighting. I was telling a friend recently that a lot of people troll me on Twitter, and one of them said, "बुढ़िया तुम मर क्यों नहीं जाती?" So I wrote back. I said, "अभी कोई इरादा नहीं है मरने का. I have to see hate defeated. Only then I would be able to die in peace." So आई थिंक जब तक नफरत है तब तक हमारे जैसे और सभी लोगों को प्यार मोहब्बत की बात करते रहना चाहिए, खास तौर से नौजवानों के लिए जिनको अब अपनी मर्जी से मोहब्बत करने का भी हक जो है वो नहीं है उनके पास, जिस तरह के अटैक्स आ रहे हैं. So I feel pretty bad for young people. And in fact, another is a space where a lot of young people come if they have to get married to each other, if they have to run and marry. And we do help them. And we do, provide them support, whatever possible within our limited means now.
I have to ask you, Shabna, on the issues of gender justice and how you work to bring attention to these important issues. Being a podcaster and an author and a writer, I have myself dedicated my work towards women empowerment, the subjugated woman of India, because I think that's a space I understand personally very well. So, what are the things that you have taken up? For our listeners, it would be wonderful to hear your viewpoint.
You see, one is that when we are teaching women, when we are doing these working in bastis or in villages in Kashmir, in Mewat, in Delhi, in Bihar, it is not only teaching them to write and read or to appear for 10th and 12th. We teach them gender equality and we make them self reliant. We try our best to make them self reliant economically also. We used to, I should say, because right now all that work has collapsed. And for example, let me tell you about Nizamuddin. That Nizamuddin, I already told you about Farida, and all the other girls had similar backgrounds. This is 1982 to 1989 that I was working there. And when Shabano happened, because we were talking to them about all the issues about what was happening in the world, what was happening in the country, and we used to read newspapers each day. So by then, from 82 to 86, the girls had become politically very aware, and they said, "We are going to join you in the protest in support of Shahbanu." And a bus full of girls came from Nizamuddin Basti, and we were outside the parliament protesting. But after that, of course, there was a major attack. Again, me and I mean, at that time, we had not married my husband now. We were both attacked physically in the Basti because they said that how dare you take Muslim girls from the Basti to a protest in support of Shahbanu, because all the clerics were and all the religious groups were against Shahbanu. They had pressurized the government to overturn the Supreme Court judgment. So when we are working with women on the ground, we are teaching them their equal rights. That is one thing. Second, we have done conventions across many states, and also we had done what we had called Reservation Express, fighting for the 33% reservation. In 2010, three women caravans traveled across India, and Anhad had initiated that. And we were able to get over 600 groups on board, women groups from across India. Then we have been organizing women marches across India, coordinating. In Delhi, we organize across India. Uh, so around the gender issue, Anhad has done huge amount of work, from working directly on the ground to also regularly fighting domestic violence cases which come to us regularly, to fighting cases for autonomy of women where a girl is being pressurized to marry. There are many girls who have run away and landed up at Anhad, and we have fought their cases against their families. For young couples, where and also for same-sex couples who Mainly women have come to us. We haven't had any gay couple coming to us, but we have dealt with 2 3 cases. So we are constantly dealing with the gender at various levels, not one level.
So, Shabnam, before I end this episode, I would request you to say something to the listeners who mainly are a lot of youngsters, for podcasts in India. What would you like to share with them from your entire experience of having done such a diverse area of work and having had the joy and, of watching so many people's lives being changed with your work and the organization that you put together? Please share some words with our listeners.
Well, I think in today's India, the most important thing is to raise your voice and raise it fearlessly, not to cave into the kind of threats which are coming, and also to be prepared to face the consequences, because we must realize that if we did not have a Bhagat Singh, if we did not have Gandhi, if we did not have Nehru and lakhs of other freedom fighters, we wouldn't have got freedom. Our legacy is Bhagat Singh's legacy. Our legacy is not Savarkar's legacy, who apologized to the British to come out. So we must remember that and realize that as we feel intimidated by the presence of the hate mongers all around us, they also feel intimidated when we raise our voices. And it is very important to safeguard the Constitution, the uh, preamble of the Constitution, because if the Constitution is safeguarded, only then, as young people, you can live your own life, whether it's a question of what you wear, where you go. And since Mohua is sitting in Bangalore, the kind of attacks which came on a New Year's Eve in a pub, I still remember that. After that, that I Will Go Out campaign had started. So raise your voices and fight for your rights. This is as much as your country as it is anyone else's. You have a right to love, you have a right to fall in love with the person whom you want, irrespective of caste, color, and religion. And if we can be of any help, I'm always available. And thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Shabnam. To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course on all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are The Mohua Show, where we talk ईमानदारी से.